I think I did the wrong one.
Okay, I just heard her a minute ago. Hold on. Did I?
I did. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me, Nick?
I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can. Okay, LaShonda
Okay.
Howard Fields, right? Because I'm so used to calling you Nikki. I raised
She's
this
live.
kid.
You know we're live now, right?
Oh, we're live? Okay.
We're live. This is the One Nation Network.
Hold on, Nick.
You got me going all crazy. This is One
All
Nation
right.
Network. I am Dirty. Make sure you go check our sponsor out, Joni's To Go Pizza at 804 Russell Boulevard there in historic Soulard
area, right off of 44, guys.
Oh, you had to get right up on that microphone again, didn't you?
I did.
Didn't you? You had to. You had to.
All right.
And then I am Dirty. Sitting over there is my co-host, the one, the only.
Lynn B, who's getting chastised by my buddy.
Who are you sitting? Who's your sponsor?
Oh, my sponsor is Stacy's Novelties Gifts. So, guys, make sure you get out to 5028 Mid Rivers Mall, St. Peters, Missouri. And if you say that you heard about Stacy's Novelty Gifts from One Nation, you'll get a 10% discount. All right?
Did you notice the little elf is sitting on your microphone?
Oh, you do have the elf, not the elf on the shelf, but the elf on the microphone. And Stacy has a lot of those elf in the shelves,
Yep.
and she even has a what is a bath bomb,
bath
where
bomb.
there's a actual elf inside of it.
Yep.
So you
And
guys
then-
definitely want to go there.
Our other special guest is the
Okay.
man's name I just keep butchering the whole time,
So
Kevin.
we'll let him introduce himself.
Go ahead.
I'm Kevin Fitzgerald, and
Okay.
I'd like to
Who's your sponsor?
One Nation Network TV. And I'd
All
like
right.
to thank you for having me because
Absolutely.
this is the greatest.
Oh,
Greatest time
thank you.
going.
And now we have
All
a
right.
special guest on
We
the phone.
do.
Linda, would you like to introduce our guest?
I will. Okay, on the phone, we have my cousin, LaShonda Howard Fields. LaShonda actually is a student and a teacher at WashU, and she did something spectacular this past election that we just had. So, LaShonda, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, great. All right, we're going to turn you up just a little bit.
Turn your volume up on
All
your
right.
phone a little.
Okay, let me get my volume up. All right, great. All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then we'll talk about what you did on Election Day.
Okay. So currently, I am a fourth-year PhD student at WashU in the School of Social Work. I previously attended Brown School, which is the social work school, a few years back when I completed my Master's of Social Work. I did my undergrad at St. Louis University, and I am a proud graduate of the St. Louis Public School District.
All right.
I am a native St. Louisan. I've never lived outside the city. I have held a couple of professional positions at WashU prior to my doctoral studies, and I am fully committed to diversity and inclusion within higher education.
Wonderful,
Oh,
wonderful.
and FYI, so a lot of people like to know for PhD students what their research interests are. I'm looking at the experiences and outcomes of Black women faculty, specifically in schools of social work, because social work is supposed to be focused on equity and things of that nature, and yet these experiences show us otherwise.
Yeah, unfortunately. Now, LaShonda, you did something a little special on Election Day. Tell us what you did and how you decided to, why you decided to get involved.
Sure. So there were a few graduate students who decided to partner with the Gephardt Institute for Civic Engagement on campus in offering rides to the polls. And so we partnered with a few organizations, the Graduate Student Senate, the Graduate and Professional Advisory Council to the Center for Diversity and Inclusion, the Gephardt Institute, Urban League of St. Louis, and a few other organizations. And so what we decided was we would provide rides to the polls to anyone that struggled, meaning that they didn't have transportation or maybe they had ability limitations or what have you. So we just wanted to make sure that everyone had an opportunity to exercise their right to vote.
Absolutely. And you were actually interviewed. This is what I'm excited about. You were actually interviewed by NPR. Tell me how that happened.
So I'm not really sure what the root of that was. We were all caught off guard by it. The day prior to Election Day, we received a call, one of the coordinators from NPR, and they're like, hey, we know that all around the country there's these different initiatives to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to get to the polls. The coordinators of the program, the two main graduate students, both identified as white, one male, one female, and so NPR was thinking, maybe we can get someone a little bit more diverse to have that conversation with us. And so that's where I entered the scene. And so I spoke with them the day before, and they said that, just give them a call after I've taken a couple voters to the polls and back, and we just have a conversation about it. So we ended up having about a 10 to 15-minute discussion, but they were also simultaneously interviewing other volunteers nationwide, and so it was just sort of compressed into one quick segment on the topic.
Great. All right. And how many people, do you remember how many people you were actually able to pick up and take them to the polls and back home?
Yes, so I personally was involved with 6 of the rides. The way that it worked, we went out in pairs. So someone was driving, someone was a passenger. So I drove 3 people, and I believe I was a passenger for 3 of the rides as well.
Wonderful.
Now, Kevin, in your area, did you guys have this kind of service where you had people picking up voters to go vote and anything like that?
Not that I know of. Again, my area is fairly well-to-do.
Right.
I'm sure at the retirement homes they had, but it wasn't volunteers. They have regular
Like
shuttles
vans.
and
Mhm.
things,
Exactly.
that do that. So no, it was different in my area.
Okay.
No.
Now, what would I
And
call her?
thank you for doing that.
LaShonda.
LaShonda. I heard that you said you're a graduate from SLU.
No, WashU.
Correct.
No,
Oh,
she
is it
said
SLU?
she
Is
went
it
to
SLU?
SLU.
SLU for undergrad and
Oh.
WashU for grad.
Oh,
Okay.
I didn't even know that.
That's where my son goes.
Oh, that's right. Little dirty.
So, yeah, let me ask you a question at SLU, because you're starting to see a change at that campus with these kids, and it's the way that tell me about the racial divide there at the school, because you're starting to see all of these kids starting to mingle with each other on these at the school grounds and on SLU. What has that done for the city and for the people of St. Louis, but with a university like that where they're all mingling together now?
So I haven't had personal contact with SLU in several years now. I'm a little bit seasoned.
Wow.
But just speaking generally, I think that in some ways we're existing simultaneously in the best of times and the worst of times. Mm-hmm. I think there are segments of the population, the youth, who are a lot less concerned about labels and putting people in boxes than older generations were. But then we also have some youth and some other age folks who are very much kind of hell-bent, so to speak, on maintaining that status quo of labels and boxes. So I'd say race is similar to gender with some individuals in this younger generation, where it's kind of fluid. They don't feel the need for you to say, oh, I'm this, this, and this. If I like you, I like you. If I don't, I don't. And it's just that simple for some of these kids. So thinking about it from that position, I think it's amazing. It's phenomenal. I'm very excited about the future of the country and the leaders to come. Mm-hmm. If they are able to educate and kind of guide the others who are at the opposite end of the spectrum that are trying to maintain, unfortunately, the labels and the boxes and the I want to say the lack of equity.
Okay. Now, the other question, you say you're at WashU now?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Okay. So there was a certain individual that came to WashU not too long ago. You know who I'm talking about? Kind of orange looking with a comb over. Do you know who I'm talking about
Did
now?
he come to WashU? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, he was there, right?
For the debate.
Yeah, for the debate.
I know he was definitely here for the debate. I'm not sure. Was there another independent visit beyond that?
No, it was there for the debate. So with you being there at the school and him being on that debate, what was that like? What was that like?
Like the atmosphere of the campus?
Yeah, the atmosphere of the campus.
So I believe WashU to be fairly liberal, but we do have a Young Republicans group. There's actually, I don't know if you could still find the clip, but at some point, because all the newscasters were present for the debate prep and all of that, Joy Reid at some point was talking to the president of the student group, the Young Republicans, and then also the Young Democrats at the same time she was interviewing them both. And they were just, they were like, whoever wins, wins. We have different ideologies, but we can coexist, and all this great exchange was taking place. So you have that. You definitely have students who are at, one end of the spectrum as far as 45 goes, and those who are at the other. He has some support there for sure. But I would think those who are not in favor of this administration heavily outweigh those who are. And even those who may have historically identified as being conservative and Republican may still not even be in step with his approach.
Okay.
All right. Now, I have a question for you, little cuz. Now, listen. I actually helped raise this child, okay? She's one of my favorites. You know what? Not a problem. Okay. Like you said, always basically lived in the city. I know there were some times you stayed in the county. Have you thought about running for alder, like an alder person in the city of St. Louis, or getting involved in politics on a different level? Because I think you definitely have what it takes. And I'm looking at state eventually.
I really, really appreciate that, seriously. So when I was younger and a lot more foolish, I always said I would be the first black and female governor of Missouri. Because or Missouri is the real problem, right? And so as I've gotten a little bit wiser, what I know is that a lot of people enter politics wanting to do great work, but then they eventually become politicians, and I don't have any interest in that. And so I think that there are other ways that I have more freedom and flexibility to ignite change. Okay. So my answer for now is no, but like the old folks say, just keep living. Right. So I don't know what's to come. And not old folks, but older. So I'm not sure. I would love to have a seat at the table where the policy is actually being drafted and enacted and all of those things. But I also realize, in my opinion, how far removed those systems are from actually taking care of our marginalized citizens and doing the work that I think that they were elected to do. And so I don't want to find myself in a toxic situation like that. I don't see me as being someone who could be bought out or what have you, but I also think stranger things have happened, right? I think there are a lot of people who have well intentions, but, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right?
Absolutely.
And so who am I to say that I would always be able to fly above that? And then also am not necessarily here for rules and regulations. Like, I want to do it in an unorthodox manner, try some things that haven't been tried, and really think outside the box and get innovative and all of that. And I just don't think the structures, our current governmental rules and regulations, kind of allow for that unique thinking.
Oh dear, so you also suffer from oppositional defiance like your cousin Linda.
Yes, absolutely.
But listen, now I know that you were teaching, so you didn't get a chance to hear the beginning of our show, but we have a guest, Kevin.
Okay.
Fitzpatrick?
Fitzgerald.
Oh my God! Now, see, Dirty, you made me say it. Who actually tell us about what you did? Because she didn't get a chance to hear about what you did, Kevin.
Well, because I was going to have him see if he had a question for her.
Exactly. That's exactly.
I ran for state representative in the 89th district. I listening to you, I couldn't agree more with what you've just said. I can see all kinds of. I lost. And I'm real interested in change now, more so than I was when I was running to be in a legislative position. Now I'm thinking just what you said. I want to find other ways to do this stuff.
There you go.
Because it is confining. Right. In my case, I'm retired and old, and I don't think I could be bought because I just don't even care anymore. I have everything I need. I thought that going into it. I thought, geez, they got a good. I don't aspire. I ran for state rep with no aspiration to be a senator or anything like that. But I didn't make it, and I could have said just what you said, only not as eloquently. Okay, so and I could have just so much.
So Kevin, with you being the state rep, okay,
or wanted to be,
well, wanting to be a state rep, running for. I mean, that's an accomplishment in its own, is to run for a state representative. I mean,
it absolutely is.
So for somebody like her, what advice would you give her? It sounds like, because she's young and she's wanting to aspire into something like this. What advice could you give someone like her?
Well,
from
first
your
off,
experience.
First off, this is the first time I've ever run for anything, and when I started running, I knew absolutely nothing. And I can't say that as literal as I can. I knew nothing.
Right.
People that were supposed to help me bailed, and I flailed around. What I would say, just from my perception, my own personal thing, is to stay yourself. You can listen to advice, but the little I'm listening to you now, I think you do quite well, in my opinion. But just stay yourself. Don't try to be anything but yourself.
Right.
There's always compromises, I guess, depending on your district.
Right.
And that's a tricky word, huh? Compromise. It's what degree do you compromise?
Exactly.
But in oiling the relationships with anybody, there's compromise. So I don't know. Just listening to you now, I think you'd be a hell of a candidate. Quite honest.
Too, yeah.
But if you kept I agree so much, though. I always said too. I don't need anything. I don't want for anything. I can't be bought. But sometimes I
Right.
wonder if I got up there and
Exactly.
people
Yeah.
said, "Hey, we'll give you a 2-week trip to Honolulu," which they could until
Right,
clean.
right.
Clean will take care of that if it doesn't get tore
Yeah.
up. But I'm not so sure. I couldn't say, well,
Yeah,
Honolulu
absolutely.
sounds kind of fun.
I know, right? but
I agree.
Right. But I agree with you, LaShonda. I think sometimes, especially with people that have our mindsets, it's best to kind of work outside the system.
I like that.
I know,
Agreed.
right?
Yes.
Exactly. Well, we
There's so much more freedom in it.
Absolutely, because it gives you an opportunity to, just like what Dirty and I do, to think outside the box and try to present what we're trying to do in a different way and get our viewpoints out there. So I really want to thank you. Any more questions before I let her go?
Kevin, do you have any?
I would suggest that you make friends with a lot of legislators because I think you could help a great deal.
I do too.
I think you could be a
Even-
great
that's
asset.
And before you
I
go,
appreciate you all.
yeah, and before you
I
go,
totally
do you have anything you want to plug where people could find you or anything like that?
I can't think of anything to plug at this time, but what I would say is just stay engaged and resist this spirit of exhaustion that I think is overcoming many of us who are trying to be active and resist the foolishness that's taking place. And self-care is going to be vital right now just because there's so much information constantly coming at us, and so make sure you're sifting through all of that as well. And then just take breaks. Free your mind here and there because it will ultimately wear you down and wear you out. And the more of us that become disengaged, the worse it will become.
Absolutely. Wow.
Thank
well,
you.
listen. Thank
you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
having me.
And not a problem. And hey, guys, you call in whenever you have a question. We're going to start. I think we're going to start doing the Google Hangout.
Yeah, we're
so
gonna
that
get a
we can
Google
more
Hangout.
people on there. Now, listen. You tell my baby Jerome and little Terrell and Terrell Senior. I said hi, and I miss him, and I'll talk to you guys later. Okay?
I sure will. See you soon.
Anytime, cuz. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Again, so that was my little cousin, LaShonda Howard Fields. And this one young lady came from a background that we can't even discuss. And with what she does, it's mind-boggling. Okay?
So
Yeah.
now, Kevin, as a guy who ran for state representative, to see a person young like that aspiring to do things like that, what hope does that give you for
A lot.
the future?
A lot. That's what gives you motivation. And as she said, I get beat up with everything because I'm at odds with most that's going on in the state and federal level, and I do get beat up. And this running for election beat the hell out of me.
I know it
honestly.
did. I know it did.
And to hear
Yeah.
her, just the 10 minutes with her gives you a lot of motivation, a lot of
Aw.
hope.
There you go. So okay,
Absolutely.
let's get to the big question. Now.
Okay.
So we've been talking. You know Wesley Bell.
Oh, right.
Yeah, big fan.
What was that like? What does that mean for St. Louis County, who has to vote the first black prosecuting attorney in? What is that like? What does that say about St.Louis County?
Who you ask?
Oh,
I'm
definitely
asking you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can only speak from my perception of it. I'm not. To me, it's huge. It's not only that he's black; he's just a great individual.
Yeah.
The first time I went and heard him speak, and he's my whole thing is my slogan was compassion is not a weakness, compassion is strength.
There you go.
Okay.
And when I saw Wesley speak, and his whole approach is more compassionate than Law and Order, than our old Law and Order things. Especially the more I get involved with the opiate crisis and things like that.
Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to talk with you about.
There's just a new direction needed severely. Quite honestly, I think we couldn't do better than to have a black individual in there now. As far as I can see, I think he's well qualified. It kept bothering me a little bit how Bob McCullough kept saying that he's not qualified. He's got 28 years of experience, and I kept thinking, well, you didn't have 28 years of experience when you got in.
Right. That's true. That's absolutely true.
But just Wesley's whole attitude, and he's a brilliant guy.
He really
he's just
is.
a great guy. That's all I can go. When I first saw him, I kept thinking the best thing they can do with this guy is to get him out there as much as possible, because you can't dislike him.
Right.
And I think it's good for the black population to have this man in front of them
As a role model?
As a role model, and it's
Absolutely.
good for white population.
There you go.
We got to get past all this.
And one thing I can say about Wesley, because he's been on our show, he was on our show a couple of times, and he's like you, got very comfortable with us, and we loved it. Very diverse staff helping him get his I thought that was great. His campaign was extremely diverse, So shout out to Wesley Bell, and again, congratulations.
I called
for becoming, You did.
I called it.
You know what?
He even gave him his own nickname. He gave him a nickname of PD, which is Privileged Dirty. It was hilarious.
I don't know if I should say this or not, but his office, the lady gave him that rent free.
Really? The one on St. Charles Rock Road? Exactly.
The lady who owns the Mexican restaurant next door.
No
she owns
wonder.
that too.
Oh, I did not know
And
that.
he went and talked to her when it was vacant, and she said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm running for prosecuting attorney." And she said, "You got it. Don't worry about it."
So did you think? Okay, so
Wow.
I mean, let's really look at it. And I mean, what was it? Just yesterday, 2 days ago
What's
was the
that?
4-year anniversary,
Michael Brown. Yeah.
right?
No, that was
No.
August
That
9th.
was in.
August 9th.
When he
I
got
think
shot,
it was anyway. I don't
What was that? It was something that just came.
It
up
just
with
recently
him.
there was something that was the 4-year
I
anniversary.
think it was the riots, wasn't the one that happened in November? Because remember, it was 2 riots. One that when the verdict came out. I
Yes,
believe it was.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
So
it was just.
do you think that had a lot to? Do you think that has a lot to do with what's going on in St. Louis County and the city? That wave of that we're as people were tired of seeing innocent people being gunned down, basically. I mean, regardless if they're a piece of trash or not, or they broke the law or whatever. I mean, do they deserve to die in the middle of the street like that, or do they
uncovered for 4 hours?
right,
remember?
or do they deserve the due process that everybody else gets? Do you think that had a lot to do with it? That wave?
I'd like to hope that it did. I think there was also pushback the other way as well. Mm-hmm. So, I think Ferguson, it did me. Ferguson woke me up, but I put a lot of work into getting woke up too on it. I went into it. I learned a lot during Ferguson.
Okay.
But I did that.
Like, what did you learn?
I learned that we have 91 different precincts.
Okay.
And a lot of them are surviving on tickets and fines, and that it wasn't that the Michael Brown shooting was the match that lit the fire.
Yes.
It wasn't just out of nowhere that Michael Brown got shot and people went crazy. And I always think, I don't care who the people are, if something like that happens, my first thought is there's something going on. I don't think people are that animalistic that people used to use or whatever the word. They're just going to go crazy. And anyway, I learned a lot that there's predatory policing. things that I didn't think of. I mentioned Northern Ireland when I went to when I went to when I went to
Oh, you're
Ferguson
good.
during the day and saw these what I call tanks, but they're on rubber tires. I sat there and thought I could take a picture of this and say it was Northern Ireland. And I don't know if anybody realizes the troubles in Northern Ireland.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a military occupation, which I always thought was hyperbole, and it wasn't. When I went over there, I couldn't believe it. And that happened in Ferguson.
Right.
I saw, I think, over militarization. I learned about that. I personally, I think that it didn't need to be handled the way it was. So I learned that. I learned that we could have a police state.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
It was a wake-up call for all of us.
I think it was.
You know,
So,
right.
so I guess the main another question as white men, because I mean we've been taught that we are the majority. We are the ones that make the rules and do that
That
and
run the game?
and and we determine what happens to people. As white men and just in general as white people, is it time that we start breaking down those barriers and reaching out to? That's that's another reason why me and Linda really started this show was
Right.
to break barriers and to have those uncomfortable conversations, because we've had them on this show. As white men, what is our responsibility to finally start to learn to bridge that gap between not just blacks, but Mexicans, minorities in general? What is it that we need to do, and what do we need to say
Right. That's a great
to
question.
people?
Ernie.
What do you just
What have I done?
Well, yeah.
What do you guys need to do?
When
Because-
Ferguson hit,
Okay.
I got on Facebook, and I always thought, well, I know black folks. But I really didn't. If I sat and thought of it, I grew up in an all-white area. I live in not all white, but, and I'll get into that in a second, too. But anyway, I got on Facebook. Like I said, when all this was going on, I knew I have a faith in humanity, where I thought, there's something. These people are, besides the shooting, all this isn't going on just because people want to act crazy.
Right. Exactly.
So I reached out on Facebook. I started contacting black people off of Facebook. And a lot of times, quite honestly, I had my ass handed to me. Quite honestly, talking to people. A lot of those people I am good friends with in this day. And it started out with me asking and saying to them very stupid things.
like what?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question, but offhand, I'm going to think I've got to watch too what I say for different reasons. But
You're very comfortable and safe here. This is a safe zone.
but there was just things I defended that I shouldn't have. Yes, I grew up a white guy in a white neighborhood, and that I never thought that I had this privilege. I never thought about it.
Right.
I wasn't challenged on it.
Right.
I never thought about it. I'm thinking, man, I work every day. I lost my wife when I had a 7-year-old and 11-year-old, raised them on my own. I'm thinking, here, I did all this stuff. I don't have any. You don't
Why
have
can't
any,
they do it?
You don't have any worse than I do,
Right.
and I learned so much, and a lot of it by people putting me in my place, quite honestly. So you got to. A lot of it is pride. You got to let your pride go. And
There
listen,
you go.
if this guy or woman tells you that you're a jerk and you better get with it. And I did a lot of other things. I went down to North City and volunteered with food banks and things like that. And just, and saying all this, I don't want to come across like I'm bragging
no,
right now.
no,
But it
no.
does
But you know
take-
what though? I do got to say this though.
Okay.
And you're getting ready to read a plug because I noticed there's a sponsor on here.
Yeah,
So
but
read your
hello.
plug.
But no, I want to talk about what he's talking about because.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
Stacey's
because.
novelty gifts, Mid-Rivers Mall.
Oh God! All right, so here's the thing, Kevin. First of all, thank you for being so honest. But when you came down to the North City to volunteer, was it really surprising to you to see how people were living down there? Because, like I said, I grew up in Richmond Heights, so I didn't grow up in the city. So it was a shock to my system when I actually started living in the city as an adult. So tell us about that experience for you.
Well, I've always been a fan of the city. I
Okay.
love the city. I've always loved the
I
city.
do too.
I hung out
White
in the-
City?
I always, huh?
White City?
No, North. I used to go down in North City too and look around.
Okay.
My mother and father grew up in North City. White flighted out in the 50s.
Right.
It was still shocking. Yes, I should cut that through. To this day, it's still shocking. I can't understand a young child. When I grew up, we're talking about fast food workers, and I worked at a McDonald's when I was 14. They didn't even care. Of course, it was a long time ago.
Right.
But I mean, there was so many jobs. I lived by Northwest Plaza. I drive around North City, and I see just utter devastation. And I think these young kids, there's no place to get a job. Anyway, yes, I am shocked. I'm shocked, and I'm also, I can't believe how good so many of the people are. I also canvassed for the minimum wage
Okay.
in St. Louis, and I purposely went to North City to canvass. And I couldn't believe how great the people were, all in all.
Yeah.
You know,
In the worst circumstances, and they have the best attitudes, don't they?
Yeah, I sat and
Absolutely.
talked to people when I canvassed.
Right.
And I've said it numerous times on this show. Oh, I gotta turn my microphone on.
There you
It's
go.
like, why can't I hear myself? I've said it numerous times on this show. If it does not happen in our bubble, as a white American, it does not happen
Right,
at all.
right.
And we just
Gotta
don't
get
care.
out.
We just don't care. And if we don't see it happen to us, we don't care. And I mean, well, and this brings it back to one of the points that me and you talked about on the phone. I know you've been touched by this. I've been touched by this. The opiate crisis
And I've been touched by it.
that we have here in the state of Missouri.
Right.
What is it that we can do to stop that? How can we stop that? Is the legalization of medical marijuana, is that a start to help cut it down, or is it just?
I'm in the midst of learning a lot.
Oh, good.
I'm a big fan of, and I'm sure they don't care. There's Chad Sabora, Robert Riley. They call them the odd couple. Robert Riley spent, I believe, 14 years in prison. He's tattooed up to his neck, all over his hands, 12 felonies or something. He's out of prison. Him and Chad Sabora got together. Chad Sabora is a former prosecuting attorney out of Chicago who lost everything he had, his family, his inheritance, his law license, everything. Both of them were heroin addicts. Now they're recovering heroin addicts, and they have an organization, a network, or not a network, an organization down on South Broadway called Missouri Network for Opiate Reform and
I know
Recovery.
exactly what you're talking about.
I was there today. I'm proud to say. I love the place. Robert Riley, I don't know, but Chad, I know. I'm getting to know more and more. I am learning so much. When you say, how do we stop it? And all this is just my opinion, it's my perception at the moment. I don't know that we're ever going to stop it because, for one, what you got to realize is this has been going on for 150 years.
Yeah, that is true.
Or more.
Right.
Now there's all kinds of things, fentanyl coming into it, which makes it more and more complicated. Their basic thing is a philosophy called harm reduction, which is the opposite of law and order, crackdown, stop. They accept everyone where they are. They don't approach any addict by saying, here, we're going to get you into treatment, whatever. They're working on things like clean needle exchange.
Okay.
Which is illegal presently, but they do it.
Uh-huh.
And that cuts down on blood transmitted diseases,
Right.
HIV, hepatitis C. They go out in the streets. They work with sex workers. They're open doors to addicts. An addict can go in there. They have Tai Chi classes, yoga. Besides getting people into, they have where they can put you in a rehab. They will have somebody, if you want to kick and you're at home and don't want to leave, they'll have somebody come out and sit with you the whole time. They have fentanyl testing kits. It goes on and on and on. Right now they're fighting for safe consumption sites where it's exactly what it sounds like. You have a site where you can come, you bring your drugs, But they'll supply you with clean needles. They'll have Narcan on site, which they also hand out Narcan. Everybody should have Narcan in their cars.
For sure, the police department and the fire departments have started carrying it.
Yes, they have. But individuals can do it. I carry it. I get it for people if they want it. But anyway, a safe consumption site will have Narcan on site, counselors. A person can come in there and use, and they'll have fentanyl testing kits, where first off you test for fentanyl, and you can do your dope, quite honestly and blatantly,
Right.
but you do it with a clean needle and you leave. This is already happening in Denver, by the way.
I was going to say, and isn't that something Amsterdam did years
I
ago?
believe so.
They
There's
actually
different-
had
there's
something
different
called Needle
countries
Park,
doing it,
right?
yeah.
Exactly.
There's different places doing it, different countries doing it.
Exactly. Now I'm gonna go out on a limb here because like Dirty said, we bring up uncomfortable conversations. Let me tell you how the black community looks at the opiate.
I know. I know.
Because when the cocaine or the crack
Yes.
hit the black community, the only solution was lock them up.
Lock them up.
But now, since it's more white kids,
Right.
it's like we've got to find something to do.
Right.
Are you seeing the devastation in the area that you live in?
I laugh because I don't see it.
Okay.
I know what's going on because I know different people. I could tell specific stories. You don't want to hear that, but I know different people. I'm laughing because someone that I know went to see the current state representative, sat in his office and tried to talk to him, and he said there's no heroin problem in West County.
No way.
And he just blew her off with that. And I thought, that's stupid and insane on so many levels. First off,
Exactly.
there is a problem. Second off, even if it wasn't, you should be concerned
Right.
if it's beyond the borders. But at any rate, yes, I do see it. I hear about it. It's there. I talk to people when I canvassed.
Okay.
Yes, it's there. I had a friend my best friend lost his son 2 months ago, 34 years old with 4 kids, served on a nuclear submarine, all that. It's fentanyl.
Fentanyl, exactly.
is killing everyone.
Yeah.
Heroin did, but
The sad thing is,
And you're right.
the doctors are giving this stuff out like it's candy. What's up with that? We know that's what Prince basically passed from.
correct. But
You
that's, I don't know how much time you want me to talk.
Oh,
but,
we're fine. Go ahead.
Well, I do have a question. I do have somebody that chimed in.
Okay.
But go on, finish your point real quick, and then we can go to this.
part of that right now that's going on, though, is, and I found this with candidates, that when people were asked, if we were out and people would ask about the opiate, they'd say, well, we got to get a prescription drug database
Right.
installed and all that. Well, number one, we do. It's a terrible one that Greeton put in. But number two, we're kind of past that, because all that does right now, and this is controversial, because they're selling that. Like politicians will say, oh, we get this prescription drug database. Like, that's going to clear it up. It's not.
Exactly.
And it's actually making things worse as far as the overall thing. Because as you said, doctors are giving it out, but then they aren't. Because this prescription drug database is making doctors weary and afraid
Okay.
to overprescribe. So it does a couple of things. A true addict, they're getting afraid to go get if they have a prescription,
Right.
they're getting afraid to do it because they don't want to get tagged in that. So they'll go to the black market and get heroin, which is fentanyl.
Right.
The same thing with people who are legitimately pain patients.
Okay.
They're cutting back on what they're giving out. So a lot of them are turning to heroin because it's cheap, it's
Right.
potent.
Right.
And what they've seen is in the 49 states that they have these set in, there's actually been increases in overdose deaths.
No.
But it's from heroin, it's overdose deaths.
Right.
Not prescription drugs, it's heroin and the fentanyl.
Right.
My friend who just died, the autopsy came back and it was fentanyl
Oh, my
in
goodness. In his system.
his system. But there's a lot of rethinking, and that's why I like Missouri Network, because they're deeply steeped in this.
Okay.
There's so much they're doing.
Could you send us a link on that so we could put it on our One Nation page?
I can.
Okay, great. Because I think we need
Fact.
Okay.
You ought to have him on your show one day.
Oh,
We could do that.
If you could set that up for us, that would be great.
I will talk to him.
Because maybe this is something, because even though the black community is extremely upset about
And I can't blame them, but what can you do now?
Absolutely, the pacifying. I can't hear myself, Dirty. Are you messing with my...
No,
Okay,
did you
go
turn
ahead.
your volumes
I
up?
have not touched
Okay,
it.
so here I got 2 points.
Okay.
Mona asked, because we were talking about the Michael Brown earlier. She goes, "So now that everyone is aware of Michael Brown, the incident, has anyone ever researched more names?"
No,
We haven't researched more
No.
names of the guys who have died.
no, and I don't want to. It's too depressing.
It is.
Okay,
it is.
what's
It's
the next question?
It's very depressing.
Yeah.
Especially,
and I don't mean to blow her off, but I just...
especially the young military guy who was just shot and killed
Yes.
in the mall, and the security guard who was just
Yeah.
killed after breaking a fight up. That was sad and tragic.
Exactly.
We know there's a problem, and we need to find a way to fix it.
Her name is Mona.
Yeah.
Mona, what I would say to you, I had a cousin that was actually killed by a white. I lived in Richmond Heights, and I was pregnant with my son in 1979. He was 14 years old in the summertime, up with his friends on their bicycles, going to the Clark service station on Hanley Road, right across the street from the Humane Society. And the white guy started giving him grief. And as he got on his bike to leave, the guy took a gun out and shot him in the back and killed him. So I don't like to spend a lot of time on this, but I do post a lot of stuff on our One Nation network. I talked about, as a matter of fact, I think I posted about the guy that was killed in the security guard, and also the guy that was from the military that got killed. What state was that?
Alabama.
Alabama,
Right in the ball.
But my question to you guys would be this, and I think I posted this on Facebook not too long ago. So most of these, like Missouri, is open carry. Don't even need a permit, right?
Not anymore.
Right. All right.
But
So
you get that medical marijuana card, you ain't getting it anymore.
all right, let's not go there, Dirty, because you keep interrupting me and you're going to make me lose my thought. Love you, don't do that. Okay. So my question is this. Was the whole open carry just a setup for black men and women to get killed? Because how many times you've got, and not even just in the state of Missouri, you had the Castillo guy that got killed, and he told the police officer when he stopped him, he said, "I'm licensed to carry." He had his hands up. "I have a gun." He just shot him and killed him right there. We had an incident that happened, I want to say, in Page, in the city, Page in the Grand area, where a guy got stopped, and he told them, "I have a permit to carry," and they shot him. I don't think he died. So, was this a setup? Because it seems like they don't even question you; they just shoot you if they see a gun.
If you believe it,
So,
you could really look at it and say, yeah, because of the way everything portrays, it does seem that way.
So, no, we don't need to go and find all the people that died after Michael Brown, because there was a lot of people before Michael Brown.
Way more.
You know what
before.
I'm saying? Absolutely.
Those are the names that we should be remembering.
And
the ones before.
And do what with the memory?
I don't know.
Do you know how to pray? I have a son, 40 years old, who's a personal trainer who drives it all day. I just have to keep him up, prayed up. I'm serious. You know? Okay, what's the next question?
The next question is okay. It's the minimum wage question. So Kevin, I'm gonna take this to you. These are gonna be the last two questions, and then we're gonna end the show.
Okay.
Mona says, "I don't think the relations between privileged is the point of starting a job at fast food. It starts with the school systems, curriculum, lunches, and fundings." I agree with that 100%.
I don't understand it, quite honestly.
Okay, so she's basically saying that it's not just about getting $15 working at McDonald's. I am a firm believer that some of these schools, starting in the middle school, they need to start talking about financial management. You know what I'm saying?
I would agree with that. Yeah, I
Right,
just don't see
right.
I don't see why she's relating the two together.
Yeah, it is kind of an apples and oranges thing, though. Yeah.
All right, and then the last one is the drug problem will continue to increase because too many people are fighting a silent battle of their own. Throwing drug dealers in jail isn't fixing a problem. Creating ways to eliminate everyday life struggles would help the job problems. Drug problems, jobs, cost of living, food, etc.
I would agree 100%.
I
we all
can say
agree on
this.
that,
I can
okay?
say this from somebody who has dealt with depression, who has been at that lowest point to where you are ready to just end it all. Throwing drug dealers in jail, that's stopping some problems, but what you're doing is you're just creating them. What you really need to do is do some kind of reforming, and you need to do education, and we need to realize that. And people are going to crucify me, but guess what? Dirty doesn't give a rat's ass. I agree that I think an addiction starts with a choice.
I do. I
You
agree
choose
with
to
that.
do that drug.
Yeah.
You're not addicted to it.
Right.
Just like this right here. This
Right.
was a choice.
Yeah, I talk about him all the time.
This was a choice. I wasn't
Right.
addicted to it.
Right.
Now I am.
Now you are. Exactly.
Your choices lead to your addictions.
Yep.
And we have to do better education.
Right.
We need to do better education in the school.
Right.
We need to actually show our children, because what our kids are taught in school now doesn't even prepare them for the real world.
Not at all.
I mean, I just had one that graduated, and he's like, everything I learned in school don't mean shit.
It doesn't
So
apply.
true.
It didn't apply.
It really
didn't
doesn't.
mean
Right.
shit.
Exactly.
And now I don't know what to do.
Exactly. And see, that's why I'm such a
If you're
firm
feeling
believer.
at that point to where you want to end it and you turn to drugs to do it, that's when you need to reach out to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're not reaching out and you're not asking for that help, then that's a long, long, lonely battle that you're not going to be able to win.
But Dirty, it's a lot of people that don't have anybody to reach out to.
There's always somebody.
You know,
There's always
Not
somebody.
not all the time.
Yeah, there is always.
Okay, all right.
I thought that for years.
Did you? Okay.
Thought that for years, but there's always somebody to reach to.
Okay, so I'm going to say this, and we've talked about this personally. This might sound a little callous. Okay. You guys have everything. What in the, I mean, you know what I'm saying? But think about it. You could pretty much go out here and do anything that you want. Like you said, you had no clue what was going down in North City, because where you were comfortable. Everything was okay. Now, don't get me wrong. I know everybody has issues, right? But like
Yeah.
you said, are those issues that you actually created yourself? Because a lot of what I see in the black community are just people that can't find jobs. They won't get hired. When I worked for the St. Louis Public Library, I had people that had got laid off. They had 3 or 4 degrees, and at 40 years old could not get a job. But not one time did I ever hear them talk about trying to take their life. They just always try to keep it positive. I'm just keeping it real. The people that I worked with, that I helped at the library, when you talk about the depression gets so bad that you just feel like you have to end it. I've been through some shit. I don't think that I've ever really just wanted to say, you know what, life is not worth it. I just had to say, you know what, maybe there's some people in my life I need to get rid of. Maybe I need to start boning up on some things that I need to let go of my life. You know,
I wish it was that easy.
that's
Yeah,
what
I
you
can-
keep saying. Okay,
I wish it- I really
on
was.
this too. I
Okay.
don't want to be too My wife
No.
committed suicide.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're talking about something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Depression is not, because, I mean, you're talking about just something different.
My sister-
There's a lot of very, very successful people that commit suicide. So depression is not only because of,
But can I tell you something?
yeah.
I have black family members that have been depressed for years, but they're still here.
Well, I have a wife that was depressed and isn't.
Yeah.
So what's your point?
Well, I mean, but and I'm not trying to be callous, like I said, but do you think that they just decide just take the easy way out? I just can't.
No,
I can't
don't.
face it. Okay, talk
No,
to
I
me.
don't. And
Okay.
That's borderline insulting, actually.
And I do
So-
apologize, but like I said, we try to be very open on this show, because this.
Well, I'm being open saying that.
And I'm not
because
trying. Listen, I'm just trying to tell you how we, from the black community, we look at you guys that can basically
there's
do
no black people that commit
everything.
suicide?
I don't know. Can I be honest with you?